Entering the atmosphere in T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Doominal Crossing. What's going on, Doom? How are ya?
Kind of fantastic despite current events of all things. I was just telling you behind the scenes last week. I saw my cousin for the first time in 4 years, and so that was really special. I was really happy that we got to finally reunite, and I'm actually seeing them again later this week, so really excited for that.
Nice.
And then also last Friday, obviously we've been doing a whole month of Echoes content, and that anniversary crept up on us on Friday the 15th. Echoes is now officially past the 20-year-old mark. And to coincide with that, I also released a massive music retrospective on that game, almost as a sequel to my original Metroid Prime 1 retrospective that I did for that game's 20th anniversary. And so yeah, if you haven't checked it out, we'll have a link in the description. I put a lot of work, including a couple sleepless nights, into it leading up to the final hour, and so far everyone that's watched it has had nothing but positive comments, and I'm so happy that you all are enjoying it. And if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go watch it, because it was a labor of love.
Hell yeah. Yeah, this man bled, sweat, didn't sleep for this video, so go give it a like, dang it. Go show Doom some love here. I actually have to be honest, I meant to watch it yesterday, but I ended up troubleshooting a bunch of stuff on the webs. You know what, by the way, if there is somebody listening to this podcast that is like good with coding, CSS, HTML, I'm begging you, please slide into my DMs, man, because golly, do we ever we need someone that knows what they're doing. Yeah, that's really cool. Go and give that a listen to and a watch, and show Doom some love there. Yeah, it's you know what? Actually, I want to stick on music for a second. This has nothing to do with Metroid at all, but I too am feeling in a pretty good mood, pretty positive mood here. And it's because, you know what? I listened to over the weekend. I've listened to it multiple times now. I'm for anybody that doesn't know, I'm a massive Linkin Park fan. I listened to the new album From Zero that just came out, and the more I listen to it, the more I love it. It's very different, it's very raw, but it's very Linkin Park in a lot of ways, and it was so cool to hear new sounds and stuff like that. I was jamming to it before we started, so I got some positive vibes going too. It's anybody out there that Linkin Park fan like me, or maybe you haven't listened to him since Meteora, whatever, give it a listen. It's a pretty cool album.
That's really awesome, especially because when a band comes back, after a while, after a really tragic loss, it can be very mixed. It's I'm happy they're back, but is it worth the cost? And
Yeah.
I remember feeling a similar way when Static X announced they were making new music after Wayne had passed away. And it turned out no, their new stuff is absolutely killer. And so I'm really happy to see that, that Linkin Park managed to find a way to move on and continue being creative, after Chester's passing.
Yeah, it was it was really just nice to hear Linkin Park again. So yeah, I'm in a good mood. Now, we have some bosses to rank from Metroid Prime 2. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes month continues. I had a lot of great feedback on our retrospective last week. However, before we get there, really, really quickly, we got some news in the world of Metroid, and that is that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond has been nominated in the Game Awards for Most Anticipated Game of 2025. I don't know. I mean, listen, the Game Awards are what they are. You could decide for yourself how much merit or prestige these awards should or should not carry, but you can't deny a lot of eyeballs watch them, and it's cool to see Metroid Prime on there. So there's a link that you can go and click and vote for Metroid Prime 4. I think you can vote for it a couple of different times, actually, maybe once a day, or I don't know, something like that. So check it out, and hey, let's let the world know that us Metroid fans are pretty pumped for Beyond.
Yeah, if anything, I feel like the nomination means a lot more than the actual results because first off, let's be clear, GTA 6 is going to win this award. It's because this isn't even if it wasn't like, a normie popularity contest and for some reason it was, voted on by like the panels that do the actual awards. I'm still unsure if it would win because I mean next year has a lot of stiff competition, but even so, because it's going to be a popularity contest, and GTA 6 is obviously going to sweep that award. I don't think that's a controversial statement, really, but the fact that it was even the fact that it was chosen to represent that, I feel like represents its place in the current zeitgeist, which I think is a good thing, and so I'm very curious to see how Nintendo capitalizes on this. Which I'm very after what they did with Dread and they actually like dedicated a legitimate marketing campaign to this. I have to imagine that Prime 4 is going to at least match that, if not exceed that.
Yeah, like I'm not expecting Nintendo to do a whole lot. Like I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna like go heavy promoting like vote for this game, but you're right. Like the fact that it's there at all is pretty cool.
Well, yeah, they're not gonna do a voting. I meant so like in its current place because I don't think Nintendo had anything to do with like choosing or like rallying for that game.
No,
which is why I think that's an important slot. That was just a committee decided like no, this game needs to be one of the one of the choices to vote on. So I think that's a good sign of like where that game sits right now. It got there over Silk Song.
Well, I mean, Silk Song is it's
wherever it
classic.
may lie.
Yes, it's a cult classic with no ETA on. I don't know if Silk Song is as popular as maybe we all think it is, but that's a conversation for another day. I will say I'm looking forward to Death Stranding 2 on the beach. That's gonna be wild. I can't wait to play that game. But I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us here, Doom, so we better stop dilly-dallying around, because we promised everybody here that we are going to be ranking these bosses for Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and there is just an absolute, like, ton of bosses in this game. Maybe I'm looking at this and just doing the quick eyeball test. I think the only other game that might come close in terms of bosses is Fusion and maybe Other M. Other than that, this game is just an absolute ton of bosses. So we got a lot of work to do here, and so we're just gonna get started, and we're gonna be doing this definitive style. And for everybody that doesn't know what that means, we're gonna start off with the first boss, the Dark Alpha Splinter. We're gonna talk about this fight. We're gonna rank this fight, and by default, Dark Alpha Splinter is gonna be in the number 1 spot. And then we're going to do the second boss, and we're going to rank it either number 1 or 2. And then we're going to do the third boss and rank it either number 1 or 2 or 3, etc., until we finish this entire list. And so there's going to be a little negotiation, a little give and take here, a lot of probably politicking. So let's get to it. I'm excited here because I think that I'm probably not in the minority saying, for me, one of the greatest strengths of Metroid Prime 2 is the bosses.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like again, I think we were talking about this during the retrospective, but like up until Dread, I would have said like Echoes has hands down the best collection of bosses. Dread's really the only title to this day I feel like is a real contender because like man, it's not to say that every boss is a winner in Echoes as we'll get to, but man, when the highs get high, they are high.
Yeah, they are high. Yeah, so I'm excited here. Let's just dive right in. Let's get started with our first boss, who accosts you in I believe is it Aegon Waste or Temple Grounds now? You're much. It's been about a year since I played.
It's technically neither. It's the Great Temple where you fight this thing. So it's close enough. Right. It's Temple Grounds. Close enough correct. To the Temple Grounds.
So we got the Dark Alpha Splinter here, who the only thing. I'll use this as a blanket statement to apply to most of these bosses. The only thing I don't like about some of the bosses for Metroid Prime Echoes is like a lot of them have that thing where you got to scan like 5 different times to get the complete like scan result for your log. Kind of like with Flogger, a lot of people miss the tentacle. There's like a couple of different guardians here that you can very easily miss scanning some different parts, or as one specific boss that we'll get to, you could just easily miss scanning altogether. So yeah, that's my one general critique, but I think it applies to most bosses, particularly, and I brought that up here because you start off fighting the Alpha Splinter, but then of course it gets a dark aetherfied and it turns into the Dark Alpha Splinter. I mean, this boss is, it's an intro boss. It's kind of like the Beetle Horde or I don't even want to say the Incinerator Drone. I don't even think it's kind of that level. But I mean, it kind of is just, it's teaching you what to do. It's teaching you how to strafe, teaching you how to charge and fire and all that kind of good stuff. It's not going to rank very highly on the list when it's all said and done. There's a chance it could be in last place, actually, at least for me. But I mean, I think as just a nice little intro, settle you into the speed of things, not bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fine. It's not amazing. It's not a bad boss by any means. Again, I will say after Metroid Dread, I think Metroid Dread sets a new standard for intro bosses, but we're not here to talk about Dread today. It's actually funny. You also mentioned the whole scanning thing, and this happened to me when replaying Prime Remastered as well, where my first playthrough, I still somehow managed to get all the scans, but I was still a couple items off from getting 100%, which usually when you think of what's the harder thing to 100%, the scans is usually the first thing that you would jump to, not the items. But both time I replayed these games, the scans were the ones that I managed to get without fail, but I always miss a couple of items that was, just an absolute pain to go around the map and, retrace my steps and figure out what I missed. So I always just thought that was funny. I do agree though, Echoes is kind of annoying with some of its boss battle scans. Luckily this one isn't too bad. There's only really two that you have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, there's definitely a couple of others where it's there's five different scans that you have to get. And if you miss even one of them, you're out.
Yeah, there's a couple offenders on this list that we will get to as we go down, but yeah, I think, I mean, like I said, the Dark Alpha, he's okay. It's nothing special, nothing that's gonna light your world on fire, but as an intro boss, I think that it's pretty cool. So I mean, by default, he's gonna be ranked number 1 right now, and God bless him, because I don't think this is gonna last long. The next boss that you encounter is the Bomb Guardian, and the Bomb Guardian resembles kind of a big worm, which is actually kind of cool because this comes back later. I think it's got a little bit of a callback later from another boss that you face. And I should probably just state right off the top, I really like the way that Echoes does the Samus loses her power-ups kind of idea, and I think it's really cool having those bosses kind of absorb all of her different power-ups and use them against her. So I think that that's a pretty sweet way to do this boss battle. Again, it's not like the hardest boss in the world, it doesn't take a whole lot of brain processing power to defeat, nor is it that tough. But I think it's still pretty fun, and it's really, really cool when the Bomb Guardian goes and litters the entire field with bombs. I think that looks pretty awesome in terms of that attack. I would certainly say for me, it's definitely above the Dark Alpha Splinter. I'd probably a mid-tier boss, maybe lower mid-tier, but good enough for the first spot on the list for right now. What do you think?
I definitely think this is a step up over the Dark Alpha Splinter for what it is. I also, honestly, I just really like the design of it. I think it's just a really cool looking boss, even if it doesn't really offer that much. I think it's kind of a unique way to show, because a lot of the bosses in this game are reuses of Samus's items, which is also weirdly similar to Fusion in a way if you think about it. But yeah, it's really interesting kind of as a first time seeing how it reuses your own abilities against you. And so yeah. Also, I want to say it's the first appearance of the mini boss theme, which I don't cover in my Echoes music video. Low key one of my favorite tracks in this game. I freaking love the mini boss theme in this game. And so yeah, that's definitely a huge point in favor of it, but overall, definitely nowhere near the strongest bosses in this game, but no. I think a pretty decent step up over the Alpha Splinter.
Easily a better boss than the Alpha Splinter, I think. No question there. And let's keep going here. Let's go on to our next boss, the Jump Guardian. I'm curious what your thoughts are about this guy. I ranted and raved about the Bomb Guardian. I'll let you kind of take the leader, Doom. What do you think about this guy?
I think he's kind of weak. Not gonna lie, I'm not really a Jump Guardian fan. If you ask me, I mean, he definitely jumps. I'll give him that. Like he wasn't lying. He very much likes to jump around. But yeah, that's really all he's got though. And I mean, I get it. There's only so much you can do with like the space jump, especially the Echoes version, which is just kind of a glorified double jump. But yeah, really, I don't know. This is I don't want to call it a bad boss, but definitely an underwhelming boss compared. I'm gonna put it in last place over everything that we've ranked so far, personally.
Ooh, I would certainly put it below Bomb Guardian for sure. I would probably. I mean, I'm not gonna campaign for this because it doesn't really matter to me. I'd put it above the Alpha Splinter. I agree though. The boss fight is kind of like it's underwhelming. Like I mean, what it is it's kind of simple. Like you've already fought a bunch of like ing at that point, so it just feels very basically almost identical. With the only difference being that the Jump Guardian does the big ground pound attack, which you know. Even in Metroid Prime, like one of the first things you learn to do is jump over shockwaves when an enemy hits the ground. Okay, easy. So like it's a pretty easy boss, and for a boss that you're fighting in Dark Aether, I mean, I guess I could see why they did it. They probably didn't want to challenge people right off the hop because there's the environment is threatening enough, but you've got like the light crystal right in the middle. You've got the one attack that the Jump Guardian does. It is pretty. It's not a hard boss, and it's definitely a regression from the Bomb Guardian. Yeah, if you were passionate about putting it below the Dark Alpha Splinter, I'd be fine with that. Personally, I think even with everything that we said, I still think that this is probably above that, but not maybe far above it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not gonna waste my passion points on this boss. I feel like there's some others that I definitely could use a little bit more persuasion on. I guess the thing with me, the reason why I would put it below is just because for me, at least the Dark Splinter, at least it's the intro boss.
Yeah,
Whereas
fair.
here we're already like 3 bosses in. At this point, it just kind of feels like a filler boss that didn't need to be there.
Yeah, I think that's fair actually, and I think that's probably convincing enough to go into last place. We're gonna revisit what you just said in a little bit because I think there's another boss that actually falls into that category as well. But for my money, let's get to one of the best boss battles in the entire game. This is Dark Samus, the first Dark Samus, and yes, we're gonna be ranking each Dark Samus encounter separately, and the way that we're gonna title them is based on how they're written on the website. So this is just Dark Samus. I think this battle is so cool for so many different reasons. Number one, that music is just absolutely like so awesome, so pump up, like so. If I've ever, this is rare, but if I ever go on like the treadmill or something like that, I throw on like the Dark Samus battle theme to like kind of get me pumped up, get me moving a little bit, get me like, oh yeah, I got the burn. So that theme is awesome. I love. You know what is an underrated part of this fight is I really love how it kind of feels like a close counter brawl. Like it feels like Dark Samus is like physically attacking you, and like especially when towards the latter part of the fight where she starts shine sparking at you, and like there's that battering ram coming at you, and the other really cool thing is like she's destroying the arena as well. So like there's all these like things that she bumps into, and there's fire and carnage everywhere. I really love that. I think it's an underrated part of the fight, and the fight itself is cool too. But yeah, it's just like it's such a cool atmosphere. I feel like it really. One of my critiques about like fights in video games sometimes, and actually even fights in like TV and stuff. Gooey and I were just talking about this on Virtual Theater. Is like when fights feel a little bit too choreographed and a little bit too schnazzy. You kind of see that I'll pick on anime here. You kind of see that in anime a lot, where like a character might get hit, but before they like instead of crashing into a wall, they do like a cool backflip and regain their balance. And like that is not this fight. It's just like rough tumble destruction. It's awesome. I really like that. I mean, this is an easy number one on the list for now, but I'm going to campaign for this fight as we go forward.
That's fair. This fight's awesome, and I think one reason that I like it is because most of the Metroid Prime fights are like very distinct puzzle fights. You have a very specific area of the boss you have to attack. This is one of those rare fights where like Dark Samus doesn't have a weak point. It's it's that classic kind of Super Metroid bare knuckle brawl where it's just like you and Dark Samus constantly just throwing left hooks at each other. Granted, you do have a little bit more in terms of like mobility and like room to like keep your distance, so you don't necessarily have to tank as much damage like say the Ridley fight in Super Metroid. But still, like it's that same thing where it's just like your whole body is a weak point, her whole body is a weak point, and you're just finding ways to blast away. I also do love finding ways to manipulate, because if you the missile launcher, it's usually one of your go-to weapons, but she'll just, instantly shield up and make that a pretty useless attack. And so you have to like look for those rare openings where you have to actually use it. And when you do, you can do a ton of damage, and it's so satisfying to like successfully pull off. And she even has like a special like knockback animation when you get a hit too. So it feels really good. Like you just nailed her with like this massive concussive blast. It's so great. And then you also mentioned the destructible environment, which is so, I've loved this ever since I was a kid. That is so cool. The way that like the way the room will just slowly get destroyed over the course, and by the end, like just the whole place is torn apart. There's like burst pipes. There's fires everywhere, and it's just it looks like a real fight took place here, and that isn't really even a lot of stuff that like in future Metroid Prime, like corruption, like didn't really capitalize on as much as this, and I never understood why, because I thought that was like such a cool, like just from a pure presentational standpoint, part of the fight.
This is one of the only fights I can think of actually that really does, maybe like the Notori fight from Fusion. Like once you go back in, it's kind of the leaves are all dead and stuff, but like most of the rooms that you go to after a big fight are they're just the room. I think it just adds so much when you go back here and like everything's smoking and smoldering and everything. I love what you said about like it's not quite as bare knuckle as the Ridley fight. There's still like a little bit more strategy involved, but like it's just like it really adds to that feel, I think. And it's pretty cool seeing Dark Samus use like super missiles and the Shine Spark and like all these attacks that are yours, but she's using them against you, and like you don't even have any of those to use against her. I think that it's like super, super awesome. This is just like, this is so cool. And I like that she's fast too, by the way. We didn't mention that, but there's something about an agile, fast opponent that is pretty, it makes it challenging without making it like artificially challenging too. So I like, pretty much I love everything about this fight. It's easily number one by probably a lot on the list so far.
Yeah. So I agree with you. It is cool seeing her use her abilities. I love how the super missile in particular even has like the same charge up animation that Samus has in the Prime games. I think that's a really cool detail. Probably my favorite attack of hers though is actually the one attack, or excuse me, I guess the shield is technically an original attack too, but I was gonna say one of her attacks that Samus hasn't used, and that's the spread shot. I feel like that and the shield, I want to say, are probably like Dark Samus's most iconic moves. But yeah, I love that spread shot. I love the sound design on it. It looks and just sounds amazing. I wish it did a little bit more damage, but that's like fishing for a nitpick right there.
it looks so cool that I don't even care how much damage it does. It's just like, okay, you almost like want to let yourself get hit by it, like, cause it looks awesome.
Right.
All right, well, so Dark Samus is number one, and really quickly, so number one is Dark Samus, number two is the Bomb Guardian, number three, Dark Alpha Splinter, and dead last is our boy, the Jump Guardian. Let's go over to a new boss, Amorbis, the Guardian of the Dark Aegon Wastes. This is almost like a beefed up version of the Bomb Guardian in a sense, where like it's the same kind of wormy looking, like frame, I guess. Except he has that really cool, I don't even know, like egg almost that you would call it that it's attached to, and then like the other Amorbis head comes out, and then the third Amorbis head comes out, and it's like, oh my god, it's design wise, I think it's a really cool boss, and I do have to say, I actually think it's a pretty fun fight as well. Wouldn't necessarily say that it's number one because there are some parts about this which were I guess like annoying is the word, like particularly I feel like when you're like when there's one Amorbis or even when there's two Amorbis and they're like in the sand and they're jumping out, there's a lot of standing around waiting for them to like resurface, and you have to be in the right spot to hit them when they're in the air. However, I think that's like kind of a minor critique. There's a lot of cool attacks that Amorbis does when it like all three heads get together and they fire that wicked laser at you, and there's, you know, you're in dark aether and you're desperately running from crystal to crystal, so there's an added element of urgency as well that really propels the fight forward. I think it's a pretty cool fight. Like I would say for me like an upper echelon fight, probably not in the top, I mean certainly not in the top 3, I don't think, but in the upper half of the list for me. What are your thoughts here, Doom?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. This is one if you want to use, if you actually maybe you don't want to use your swaying points for this, because again I could go either way on this being over Dark Samus or not, but I'm totally fine with Dark Samus being number one as well, because I love both of these fights pretty equally, I want to say, but they are very different atmospheres. You know, we were just talking about how Dark Samus is a bare knuckle brawl. This is definitely that more traditional Metroid Prime puzzle type of boss fight where you're dismantling very specific parts of that before you go in for that killer weak point damage, and I actually don't mind the surfacing, just because if you use a charged light beam shot, at least on normal mode, and we're talking the GameCube version here, not the Wii version, which is a little bit easier, but on the GameCube, if you use a charged light beam shot on normal mode, that will instantly take out all its armor and it'll immediately turn into Dark Amorbis for the second phase. So I don't have a problem with the with the whole surfacing phase. If anything, I just think the whole scale of it, just watching these giant, pre-Dune sandworms just popping out all over the place, just looks awesome. And the fact that the GameCube is able to run all of that without like any major performance issues is pretty incredible, if you ask me.
I agree.
There's a lot of boss fights that have massive scale, and there's definitely one in particular we're going to gush about much later. But yeah, for as the first of these like large scale boss fights, I think it definitely has a really good first impression. I also, again, I'm a real sucker for bosses that incorporate the morph ball, and the final damage that you need to do is actually going into its mouth and laying a bomb, almost like it's a stone toad from Prime 1. And so yeah, I'm a big fan, even as simple as it is. I just love that that's a thing.
Yeah.
And so
it's kind of weird.
So
this
yeah,
boss
definitely
reminds me of like Flagra in some different ways.
Yeah.
Which is weird because they're
Flagra,
totally different.
You also use the morph ball bombs to damage Flagra as well. So
yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's kind of, even though it's so different, it's similar enough. It is pretty cool, man, when those dune worms are just sucking you up, and then you do get to go inside the mouth, and just like that is just a proud classic Metroid trope that just brings me joy every time that an enemy sucks you up and you just bomb them inside. There's something about it that's very satisfying, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, pretty much for me, it's at least number 2 on my list so far.
I would go number 2 as well. I still think I prefer Dark Samus over it, but I think Amorbis is gonna go number 2, and I have I quite like this one, so I think it's gonna stay in the upper echelon of the list. I would say For me, there's a big divide between Dark Samus and Amorbis, and then everything else so far.
Oh yeah, absolutely, without question.
Well, let's go and talk about one of the most infamous, arguably the most infamous boss in the entire Metroid series. The one, the only, the Boost Guardian. Where do you want to start?
So when I first played Echoes, this is probably the boss that I died the most to,
Yep.
as a wee lad. This boss gave me so much trouble, as it did quite a lot of other players, it seems. Um,
I
I don't
remember
know.
playing
Nowadays
this.
it's pretty easy. I don't know. It's pretty easy nowadays. That being said, I do really like the Boost Guardian. Infamous difficulty aside, I really I don't know. I just maybe it's the Metroid Prime pinball and me speaking, but I don't know. There's something about it transforming to the morph ball and just zipping all over the place where I'm just like, yeah, that's my vibe. I like that. That's cool. And so and it's just and for for a typical warrior ing boss fight, it's just pretty creative in general because because not only do you because typically you just you just shoot at the ing and that's it. You actually have to stun this guy with your morph ball bombs, and so I kind of like that extra step there. That kind of it provides a little bit more interactivity. And then I feel like what really separates a veteran player from a new player is how you utilize the inglets that constantly spawn. Because for a new player, those inglets are going to be the bane of your existence, constantly doing damage. But for a veteran player, that's your source of health to keep you alive and in the fight.
Hmm.
And so managing those inglets versus when you want to attack or stun the guardian, I feel like that's like the big strategy at play when doing this boss. Overall, I would probably put this at my number 3 on the list. It's definitely below Dark Samus, definitely below Amorbis. I'm putting it above Bomb Guardian though.
Let me unpack my feelings here. I remember playing this for the first time and thinking like this is bogus. This is bull. You know what? Um, you're right though. Like as you kind of get more attuned to the playthrough with or to the boss rather with more playthroughs, you can kind of get your rhythm down. You can utilize the inglets to your advantage. It does add like a level of urgency to the fight again because you're literally unprotected in dark aether. So I think that those are like, I mean, they're positive things now, but I hated them when I played it, and I think it's just a very unwelcoming boss battle for a lot of. It's the type of boss battle that like if you were trying to get a new person like into Metroid, it's a tough sell, like because it's not a fair boss battle to expect. Because I think you're right, like veteran players, yeah, you're gonna know to utilize those inglets, but maybe not necessarily if you're not, or you might just try and avoid them and wonder like how am I supposed to do this. And I do think that extra step to damage the boost guardian is kind of a blessing and a curse. It's kind of like frustrating at times because there's no rhyme or reason to like how long the boost guardian will stay before it shrinks back down into like goop mode and starts like crawling around the floor. So it can be a frustrating boss. I think like the best part is you're right, like when it's actually zipping around in boost ball form, like that's actually pretty fun, and it's pretty frantic too, and it's got some destructible stuff that's going on, which is again, veteran players could use that to their advantage because I believe that every little pillar that it destroys drops a pretty hefty health refill.
I think each one has an ultra energy, if I'm not or at least one of those new 50 energies that Echoes introduced. It's one or the other. I can't remember.
I think everyone's a yellow ultra. I'm pretty sure. I could be
Hmm.
wrong, but I'm pretty sure. So I mean, like this fight does give you opportunities to, stay alive. Um, but I think like I'm putting my hat on for my first time playing it, and I also kind of like to judge bosses by like if I was trying to get my friends into Metroid, like would they like this boss or not? I can't say that I think the answer for that is yes, and I think that the actual fight itself is like just kind of like okay beyond those boost moments. I if it were me, I'd probably put it below the Bomb Guardian. I think I'd campaign for it to go below the Bomb Guardian, to be honest with you, because I just think that that's like just kind of a much more cool fight. It's a fair fight. This isn't as bad as like. It's not as bad as I think like the reputation that it gets would say it is, but it's not the best fight either. It does people dog on it for a reason, and I think that is fair enough. So I'd This one would probably be on the lower echelon of my list, and I'd rank it lower than Bomb Guardian personally.
I don't think I agree with that, but I'm fine with that placement at the same time. I think, because here's the thing, I agree with all your criticism is the thing. I think I'm just ranking it from like my own personal perspective today. I'm not really accounting for like how other people feel about it or how I used to feel about it. I'm just purely me in the moment. What do I feel about the Bomb Guardian right now? It's kind of how I'm doing my list. I think your points are also extremely valid though for the way you're critiquing it.
Yeah, I guess like my thoughts on it are like it's okay, but it can be frustrating. Like even playing it today, like I think it's okay, but it can be frustrating. So I mean that's kind of those are my thoughts. I mean like if you really want to put it above Bomb Guardian, I could probably let that slide because I have one that I'm going to campaign for later. So if you wanted to do that, that's fine. You let me know. We'll make it happen.
I'm not gonna fight it.
Well, I'll tell you what then. Let's put it below Bomb Guardian for now, and then we can revisit it maybe if we need to come back to it. So we've got six bosses on our list here. Let's quickly recap. In last place is the Jump Guardian, followed in 5th place by Dark Alpha Splinter. 4th is the Boost Guardian. 3rd is the Bomb Guardian. 2nd is Amorbis, and 1st is Dark Samus. All right. The Alpha Blog. Can I suggest to you that this should be last?
I don't like this fight. Put it in last. I don't like this fight.
This fight kind of stinks.
The big problem with this fight is the hitbox is so janky. And like it's so easy. Like you can do the fight perfectly, but if your super missile is a pixel off, it'll only stun it instead of damage it. It's really annoying. Fun boss if you're doing the speed run method where you already have screw attack or power bombs that can insta kill it, but we're judging this on a regular playthrough. And then even so, that's more just satisfying, just to see it get taken out so easily. Yeah, it's an easy last place for me. It's just it could be a little higher maybe with some tweaking, some better hitboxes, but
no,
it's more annoying than anything else.
It's just not that engaging. Like it feels like a regular enemy. And to add to what you were saying about the jankiness, one of the worst things is the Alpha Blog will like do that attack that all the blogs do. It rushes at you, and sometimes it'll rush and then rush, and like the camera just goes absolutely crazy. And like there have been multiple times where I'm trying to target on the Alpha Blog, but like the camera is like literally inside of its mouth or something like that. So it's really hard to kind of get your bearings. And it's not like it's not hard in a way to get your bearings as in like you've been hit in like across the room. It's just like the thing is pixelated on top of you. And it's just it's janky. The fight is so easy and so simple. I think you need like literally 4 super missile shots to it and it's done. There's really like you could pretty much just stand there and wait like the whole time. Like it'll shoot its little water blasts at you, charge, boom, super missile, and it at best that you do that 4 times, and at worst then it hits you with that janky attack, and it's like, God, I can't wait till this is over. So yeah, I think that this is a last place for sure.
You bring up I agree. You bring up another good point. On just like the lack of interactivity in this fight, because I think one thing that I really do like about the Boost Guardian that I mentioned is that extra level of interactivity in the stun phase that you don't typically get from like a Warrior Inc. fight. And here it's the opposite. You like you said, you stand around doing nothing, you wait for it to do the attack, you hope that your super missile isn't a pixel off so that you can actually damage it, and then you rinse and repeat. And I feel like one of the biggest missed opportunities here is you just get the gravity boost and you don't really use it. Yeah, you use the pseudo gravity suit feature, obviously in the boss because you can freely move around the water, but you don't really use the gravity boost itself in this fight. Nor do you really use it in the rest of the game. But we'll talk about that later for the redefinitive ranking episode. But yeah, in this boss fight in particular, it feels like a missed opportunity because one of my favorite Metroid traditions is just using your shiny new upgrade in a boss fight and to get your bearings and test it around. You don't really do that for this fight, and yeah, I think that's pretty weak. I think they Granted, this game was also developed in less than 2 years.
Yeah.
I understand time constraints, but just in a bubble on its own, it definitely should have used the gravity boost at least, on top of the other criticisms we've layered on.
I just kind of feel like did this boss need to be there? I don't think so. I think that
I don't think so. No.
It wouldn't. This game would have been any lesser without this boss, and it could have just easily been like, sometimes you go into a room like in Metroid Prime, you got to go into a room sometime and clear out like 3 Chozo ghosts. I don't know what's wrong with just clearing out 3 blogs or something like that. Yeah, it's just
or even just nothing. I mean, Metroid Prime, you collect the speed, you collect the space jump, and then there's no boss fight after. You just continue on. I think you could have done the same thing here, honestly. Heck, the Dark World version of this exact same room has a significantly better boss later on, in my opinion.
Yeah, so it's not the best.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what it is. So that's going in last place. But let's go to a boss that I definitely know is not going in last place. And that is the Grapple Guardian. Let's start off with your thoughts here, Doom. What do you think about this guy?
For me, I don't know the exact position right now because I'm kind of going off the cuff. Definitely going to be on the bottom half of my list, though. I am not the biggest Grapple Guardian fan. And I think, I think this is another example of a boss where, much like the Jump Guardian, if this was something that happened early on, I think it would have made a lot more sense. But at this point, we're starting to near the halfway point of the game, and this still feels like, a very plotting out battle where you're just you're waiting for a lot of stuff to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's not that much in terms of interactivity, and kind of going back to the alpha blog. There's even more jankiness, this time with its grapple beam attack, where sometimes, because basically the way that you have to damage it is you have to wait for it to do its grapple beam attack onto one of those pillars, and then while it's stuck, you go behind it and shoot its weak point. But much like the alpha blog, it's really janky, and sometimes and in fact, a lot of times, it just won't work. It'll attack the pillar, and nothing will happen. And it's just like, well, okay, I'm doing everything right, but it's not working. And so it's a fight that much like the alpha blog, the first word that comes to my mind is annoying. It looks cool. The sound design is cool. Again, it has that mini boss scene, which I really like. But in terms of a fight, yeah, it just annoys me more than anything else. Not as much as the alpha blog, and I'd even be fine with putting it above maybe one of those intro bosses. But again, this isn't one I'm campaigning for.
I had a thought, but I'll maybe readjust my thought for you. I think I like this boss more than you. But I also if let's just say, I don't know, if there's 18 bosses in the game, this one is like 9. Like, it's dead in the middle. Like, it's not the best, but it's not the worst. I pretty much agree actually with what you said. Like, getting the Grapple Guardian to actually hit the pillars that you need him to sometimes can just be like, what do I need to do that I am not already doing to get you to hit these like you should be doing? So it can be annoying. And I think it's also I don't know, not annoying isn't the right word, but it can be a little bit tedious to like get him to finally attach to the pillar, and then you gotta basically haul across the room to get to his backside and attack it, which is kind of frustrating because like the chances of you successfully getting the Grapple Guardian to attach to the pillar are much higher if you get him to attach on the pillar on the opposite side of the room, not the one that's closest to you. But then you gotta book it across the room to get to his backside, at which point he's probably not even grappling that anymore. And I will say, the Grapple Guardian is an egregious example of another of like one of the Metroid Prime 2's instances where there's all of a sudden this extra scan that you have no idea that you need to do. At the end of the fight, you get him to about the 25% mark. This is when the Grapple Guardian just kind of starts to surround itself in grapple energy, whatever that is, and then I feel like nobody would know that they have to scan this again if you didn't already know that. However, I think the design, like, I like the idea behind the fight. Like, I think it's pretty cool trapping the grapple onto the pillar. I like the central mechanic behind it. I think that the Grapple Guardian looks really cool. The the grapple itself looks cool. The lighting of the room looks cool. The design of the enemy is sweet. You're right. The music sounds good, and I like the battle arena too. It's kind of like a different style. It's got like the mesh flooring, which probably doesn't mean much to most people, but it just kind of gives it like a different little look. So there are things about this fight that I do like. The last portion of the fight, like the last 25% when he kind of summons that grapple energy to himself, I feel like takes as long as the first 75% of the fight when you're trying to get it to hook onto the pillars. That can be a little bit can feel like a grind a little bit. My original thought, because I feel like this is a mid-pack boss to me, you're gonna hate this. My original thought was putting it above the Boost Guardian. I feel like that's off the table.
I'm gonna have to campaign against that. Yeah. I can't. That I can't do. I'm willing to put him below Bomb Guard. I cannot put Grapple Guardian.
I kind of thought that. And you know what? I don't feel that strongly about the Grapple Guardian, where that's gonna break my heart. I think I probably would still, though, put it above the Dark Alpha Splinter and the Jump Guardian. Like, I think he's got more going on than the Jump Guardian, at least,
Mm-hmm. And I think, like you said, like his design is killer. And I like the concept of the fight. It's basically like, hey, what if we did the Dragon technique from Super Metroid, but that's like the boss fight? Like that's a cool idea in 3D. Like, yeah, I'm down for it. It's just, unfortunately, the execution just could have used a little bit more polish, I think.
I think so, yeah. Like that conundrum is kind of the downfall of this boss fight, where it's like, you can get him to latch onto what you need to, but then you don't have time to actually get it and attack it. So it's could have used a little bit of tweaking. I would like to see this gimmick come back. You know what? The other thing too, now that you brought it up, is like every time I see like a boss like this, where like you have to grapple it to something, I'm just kind of like, man, I wish that we could just get like a 3D fight with Dragon. Like that's just kind of cool. That's what I want. So this one just kind of makes me realize what we don't have, which is a little bit unfair to the Grapple Guardian, but such is life. Okay. Let's go on to our next boss. First and foremost, we got to determine, how do you pronounce this? I've always said Shika.
So I pronounce it Chica, and the reason why is specifically because of Kashyyyk from Star Wars, which I believe has 3 Y's, not 2 like Chica does. But otherwise, I don't know if there's ever been like an official vocalized pronunciation of this. So I have no idea. Could be anything for all I know.
So everybody listening out there, if we're calling this boss by a name that you have never heard before, I'm saying Chica, Doom is saying Chica. So sorry. You're probably going to be pulling your hair out here. That being said, the Guardian of the Dark Torvus Bog. I remember very vividly the first time I ever played this boss, and I thought it was hard. And I was so pumped that I had defeated the boss. And then it came back. And I was like, oh my god. I think this is a really strong boss. Upper echelon. I can't say that I think that it is going to challenge for like the first spot. It's pretty cool though. Like it's a fun, particularly the second half when once you get it out of the larva and once it actually evolves to the adult form, it's really frantic the way that it's like shooting its spores and stuff at you. You're frantically using your grapple to jump and swing across the platforms in the lake of dark whatever that is. To get behind it and shoot it with your super missiles and its wings. It's a lot of fun once you really get into the rhythm of it. And I think it's not my favorite. The arena's kind of bland in whatever, but that part always really sticks out to me as just being really fun and really cool to do. I do think that the larva stage is kind of, it's okay. It's okay. And this does have a lot of other scans as well that you do need to stay on top of, particularly like those little, I don't even know what they're called, like the little floating guys there. But I think that this is a fun boss battle. I don't know how I feel about putting it above or below Amorbis, though. Let's hear what you think.
I think this is my number 1 pick so far. So far, obviously not going to be my number 1 pick by the end.
Okay.
But yeah, I really resonate with this boss boss battle, and I think the reason why is just because you are using so much of your equipment throughout the fight. You're using the light beam, the dark beam, the super missiles, the grapple beam, the seeker missiles. You are using so much of your equipment throughout the fight, and like again, I really highlight like how much I love interactivity in boss fights, and there's just so much going on between both these phases. And I love just the overall, I don't know if the story is the right word, but I love the way the fight literally evolves. Where you, again, like you were saying, you think you're fighting one fight, and it's like, no, actually, that was just the tutorial. Now the real fight begins. And I think there's a reason why AM2R used those themes for its take on the chorizo fight as well. I think it works really well in that context, for me at least. Again, probably one of my favorite boss themes in the game. I absolutely love it. I love how the tempo increases during the second fight, and it really emphasizes some of those 16th notes. It just gets really frantic. It matches, it literally matches kind of the frantic wing speed when it does fully evolve like that. And yeah, I'm a big fan of this boss fight. Unfortunately, the upgrade you get after the fight, definitely on the lower tier of my Echo's item ranking if we ever did that in the future. But the boss fight itself, I think, is incredibly strong. I'm not going to campaign for it at 1.
What do we get after this fight again?
Huh? The Dark Visor.
Oh, the Dark Visor. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Of course you forgot. It's the Dark Visor.
Yeah, I mean, point taken. Yeah. I just had...
But yeah, I'm not going to campaign... I was just going to say, I'm not going to campaign for 1 or 2 if you don't want to put it up there. If I were doing my personal list, though, it's definitely handedly in my personal number 1 spot so far.
You know what? I'm okay with that. Because I feel like... Okay. Well, I feel like this boss kind of exists on the same level as Amorbis, and I'm looking and I feel like Amorbis exists on the same level as the first Dark Samus fight to me too. So I feel like I'm okay with that. A little bit of give, a little bit of take. I had a revelation while we were talking, actually, because I think my critique about this boss is it can be a little bit long, right? Like because the first phase isn't exactly short. It's still like a decent phase when you're fighting the larva. This is what we should have done. Are you ready for this? This is going to blow your mind.
Okay, let's go.
We should have eliminated the alpha blog, put the larva in that room. You fight the larva at that point, and you start this boss battle off thinking that you're going to fight the dark version of the larva. All of a sudden, Chaika flies out, and that's your boss battle. And it cuts down a little bit on this one, upgrades the other boss battle that we both think is no good. And actually, that gives you an opportunity to use your gravity boost in that fight as well, since you're going to be having to move around and jump over it. I mean, clearly you would have to change the way that larva boss battle works, because you couldn't do the same thing. But I think that'd be pretty cool. I think that would have been a better use of this larva.
Not opposed to. I don't think this boss is too long, personally. I think it hits a nice middle ground between being lengthy but not overstaying its welcome. Like, it feels like a gauntlet, but it doesn't feel exhausting to complete. It's not, it's not like Meta Ridley in Prime 1. Sorry, folks. I know that's a
that's a long battle. That's a long boss battle. Okay, the next.
But yeah, big fan of big. Oh yeah, sorry.
The next one on our list then. So number 1. Chaika, we got this. I was so ready and willing to put that at number 1 because I'm gonna go for bat. I'm gonna go to bat for this next boss on our list here. I am going to campaign for it. If there's one boss that the hill that I'm gonna die on, it's the next one, and it's the Spider Guardian. If it were me, I'm putting it at number 1. I'm putting it at number 1 for a few reasons. 1, I love that Prime 2 was daring enough to have an entire boss battle in Morph Ball form. We talked about how awesome it is earlier when, you get sucked up in by enemies and you get to bomb them with the Morph Ball. I love the idea of just having like this cool boss that you do just entirely in Morph Ball form. It makes spectacular use of your boost ball in this fight. It makes spectacular use of your bomb jumping. And it's one of those puzzle fights, but the puzzle is so cool. I love the way that you have to really think, and it's kind of a nice blend of like a puzzle boss, but like you also have to be able to perform as well. Like you know what you need to do, but you do have to have the skills in order to do it. So I think it's a really nice middle ground between that. And I don't know, I really like the look of this fight too. Is really cool. It's got the spider tracks everywhere illuminating the battlefield. This is like, honest to God, this is my favorite fight in the game. Like I really enjoy doing the Spider Guardian like more and more and more the more times that I play this game. I know that a lot of people don't like this fight. The trilogy version is more user friendly for sure, because you have the bomb jump here. But there really is only one point where you have to do a double jump in order to really get the Spider Guardian to where you need to go. The last time I played this game, it was a GameCube version, and I mean, I'm not a good Metroid player, but I was able to hit that double jump pretty easily. I think it's just like a cool skill check. It's a cool idea. It's a cool like gauntlet. I really love the progression. The music is awesome. The setting is awesome. You feel really smart and really capable when the boss is actually done. I love this boss battle, man, and I know I'm probably in the minority there, but this is a really strong boss battle for me in not only this game but like the series, just because it's so unique and so unlike anything else that we've really done.
Andy Spiteri. I can't believe I'm agreeing with you. Put it at number 1. Do it. Put it at number 1. Let the haters hate.
Yes.
Put it at number 1.
All right.
Oh yeah, big Spider Ball Guardian enjoyer right here. So yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page here. Yeah, I will absolutely not be fighting this at all whatsoever. Again, like I was saying earlier, I am a sucker for morph ball combat in the Prime games, and this is not technically not the only one. Well, there's one coming up in just a sec, actually. One of the only fights completely dedicated to morph ball combat, and man, like if you don't know what you're doing, I get why it's frustrating, but man, once you do know how to manipulate it and really use your morph ball abilities on an offensive and a movement level, oh, it's so satisfying to like gain control of the fight and just manipulate that boss wherever you want it to go. Like you really do feel like it does feel like kind of a chess game almost, like the way you're playing it, because you really do have to like pre-plan your moves in advance and kind of dictate figure out in advance like where it's gonna go, track its pathing and whatnot. It's a very different type of boss fight, and like for me personally, it just works on every level. I will say I don't think there's any double bomb jumps that I'm aware of. Like you were saying, there are those
one you have to do.
I know like in the final section, there's those narrow hills where you have to like completely stop at the top of the hill, otherwise you'll roll off. Mm-hmm. But I don't think there's like actual double bomb jumps. What I do really like though is the boost ball, because obviously you have a couple of half pipe sections, but there's also some gaps that you would try to bomb jump over, but you can actually use your boost ball to cross those gaps, and if you hit it just right, you can actually speed through those, and that's like really fun to pull off as well. And so yeah, not only that, but yeah, you got all this tech as well. I love this fight, man. Number freaking 1.
Yeah, 100%. I'm fact checking myself. Maybe you're right. Maybe there's not a double jump. Maybe it is those hills though, man, that you got to get to. Mm-hmm. Holy, yeah, I love this fight. Like I didn't when I first played it, but the more I played it, the more I was just like, oh god, Spider Guardian, okay, Spider Guardian, okay, Spider Guardian, all right, let's go. I will say, I've called it out for a couple other bosses here, and so I have to call it out here as well. This is like the easiest scan in the entire game to miss, because if you don't scan it before the fight actually starts, you're toast. I do wish that they would allow you to, they would have telegraphed maybe the fight a little bit more, because basically you don't see it until like immediately before you go in the tunnel to do the fight, and that's if the Spider Guardian happens to be there. So they could have used a little bit more notice for that scan, but yeah, other than that, man, this fight is so awesome. I love this fight. It's one of my absolute favorites in the entire game. So I'm glad that we're on the same page here, Doom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my only critique of this fight, and this doesn't really affect me, just because, I mean, not to sound too insufferable, but I'm I'm too good at this game now. But my really only critique of this fight is the location of the save station is very far away. And if you were me first playing this game, or you are someone first starting this game, and you do die, it is very annoying to have to go all the way back to that save station, trek all the way back, do the entire the Sanctuary Temple dialogue, go back through, the twisty loading room back into, the main temple plaza, and go through all that. It definitely feels like a lot of wasted time. I think you have to go through the gyro chamber puzzle again. Like there's so much padding between that fight and the nearest save station. And so that I definitely think I think that could definitely be worked on, have something at least a couple rooms outside. But again, that doesn't really affect me, and just focusing on the boss fight itself, I have zero critiques.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And there's a few bosses in this game actually that are kind of the similar ilk as that, where the save stations are pretty far away. So I think that's a valid critique, though. The Spider Guardian is particularly egregious, but everything about this fight to me it's an awesome fight. Let's go to our next boss here, which I actually don't think is an awesome fight. I don't really love this one. This is the Powerbomb Guardian. I don't know. It seems like a fight that I should like. It's a morph ball kind of focus fight where you're using your spider ball to scale up the walls and activate 4 bomb slots. I think the thing about this fight is it's kind of almost like the Alpha Block to me, where it's just like this pathetically easy like fight. Like I don't think I've ever been hit by a power bomb. Again, not to sound insufferable, but like you have to really be trying to get hit by this like Powerbomb Guardian. I think the design of the fight, like the design of the Powerbomb Guardian itself, is like, it's okay. The arena, it's okay. Like everything here, like it's okay. I think for when it comes in the game, though, it kind of feels a little bit underwhelming to me. And I will say it's also kind of a pain in the butt that you have to like backtrack all the way to Torvus from Sanctuary Fortress to go and do it, which shouldn't impact my ranking of the boss itself, but I can't lie and say that also doesn't factor in my ranking. This one would be low for me. Pretty low.
See, I feel like this is going to be my Grapple Guardian, where this is like the middle of the pack for me. Okay. But I also don't disagree with those criticisms. I guess the one I will disagree on is the backtracking. I don't mind that one just because there's after you beat the boss, at least there's a shortcut that's like immediately will take you back to like Sanctuary and like immediately put you back where you need to go. So like you do have to backtrack during that initial trek through, but then the way back is just like you can get there super easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, the boss fight itself, I think I kind of agree. Like this is one where it's like I like the concept, and I think it's fine. I think it's a fine boss fight, a nice 6 or a 7. But because it's one of those late game fights, it definitely feels a little bit worse than it actually is. And so I still like it, but there's definitely a big asterisk there.
It's tough because like the game is just like at this point, like basically from Chica on, it's like ramping up these boss battles. Like each one is more spectacular than the last, except for the Powerbomb Guard. The Powerbomb Guardian he's kind of like the little dog among all the buff dogs in that meme. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. And I'd put the difficulty in there as well, because I mean we were just talking about Spider Guardian, very difficult fight for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I would say well Chica, whatever it's called, like definitely you don't really hear that boss fight talked about like in the difficulty ranking, but like I think that's a fair difficulty step up. I think this one doesn't really have that though, and it kind of feels like this should feel more challenging. I feel like I don't mind it. But it almost feels like this could have swapped places with the Boost Guardian, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, and like I get it. I guess maybe they wanted to give you a little breather as well. But it's kind of like what we were saying earlier. Like that's totally fine. But like maybe I don't know. Maybe you just get the power bombs. You don't need to, do. I mean, the boss is fine. Like it's not like it's not unfun. It's not. like, it's not annoying in any way. Like, sometimes even today doing the Boost Guardian, I'm just like, this is an annoying boss fight. And I don't feel that about the Power Bomb, but I also feel like when doing the Boost Guardian, like, this is fun at times where, like, he's zipping around everywhere. And I'm kind of just like, it's almost like just doing a puzzle in Metroid Prime. It's like, I almost forget that there's an enemy there sometimes. So it's kind of like, it's just something that you got to do, not necessarily anything that sticks with you. So I don't know. We're on our list right now. Where would you rank this?
Probably put it. I don't know. I'd probably put it around the area of like where the Bomb Guardian is right now. That's kind of where I'm thinking. But again, this isn't one I'm gonna waste my campaign points on.
So right now we have the Bomb Guardian ahead of the Boost Guardian, ahead of the Grapple Guardian, ahead of the Dark Alpha Splinter, ahead of the Jump Guardian.
I'd probably put it below Boost Guardian.
Okay. That's fine. If this were my list, I ain't gonna lie to you. This one might go below Jump Guardian because I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of it. But I like I said though, like it's not unfun. And now that I'm thinking about it, it probably would go above Jump Guardian actually. But and it would probably go above Dark Alpha Splinter as well. So that's fine actually. That's a fine compromise there. Okay.
Yeah, I the only thing I would is as long as Alpha Blog stays at last place. That's really the only thing I'm absolutely sticking with. Really.
Yeah. Well, let's do a quick recap here. Unless my eyes deceive me, we've got 11 bosses ranked. So in last place, we've got the Alpha Blog. Next, after that, the Jump Guardian. Then Dark Alpha Splinter. Grapple Guardian comes next after that. The Powerbomb Guardian. The newest entry on our list is over in 7th spot. Number 6, the Boost Guardian. Number 5 is the Bomb Guardian. Number 4 is Amorbis. Number 3, Dark Samus. Number 2, Shaika. And number 1, unbelievably, is the Spider Guardian. That brings me joy. Okay, Dark Samus returns. Dark Samus fight number 2, baby.
This is awesome. This is a really good one, man. It's a good one. This is my favorite of the 3 Dark Samus fights. This one's killer. I love it.
I agree. This fight is killer. This fight is so awesome. The music is back. The setting is ramped up. The Sanctuary Fortress is almost like a cheat code. Like if you're fighting in Sanctuary, it's like it just looks cool pretty much anywhere that you are. We got more cool stuff here, like same cool attacks as before, but now you factor in like the Dark Visor. Now you factor in, you've got the moving elevator too, which is like, doesn't sound like a lot, but I feel like it adds like kind of a cool element to the fight as well. Dark Samus has some new attacks up her sleeve. This is just like such an awesome fight.
Yeah, you thought the Boost Guardian was the only time you're gonna face the Boost Ball. Nope,
God.
we're back, baby. And I love Dark Samus's Boost Ball in this as well. You don't really get to see the model that much because of how intense the bloom is on the lighting effects on, but I love the look of Dark Samus's Morph Ball too. It looks so awesome.
Yeah.
It's basically like it's that first Dark Samus fight, which was already amazing, just turned up to 11, and just, I love it. If you do manage, if you're speedrunning and you do manage to get the screw attack out of order, you can actually really do some serious damage to Dark Samus with the screw attack as well, which is really fun to pull off. So that's a plus for me as well. I believe, I could be wrong, I believe that this fight is the first time that Dark Samus... No, she doesn't. There's a cutscene where she does her iconic laugh. When she reappears briefly in Torbis.
Yeah.
In that cutscene, she does the laugh there. Never mind. But she can actually do the laugh like out of cutscene. Like she can, like if you don't damage her a lot, she'll actually taunt you and do that laugh like in game, which I think is so awesome. I'm a big fan of like bosses getting cocky and trying to taunt us. Another reason why I like the Ravenbeak fight in Dread too, because he'll do the. He'll do the Neo like come here, yeah. So yeah, big fan of that. Again, really no critiques here. It is a perfect fight from start to finish, really.
You know, like I know I said the Spider Guardian is my favorite fight in the game, and in many ways it is my favorite fight. But there is something about the presentation and the like everything about this fight. Like it's different when you're fighting like a character versus like a monster, you know, and maybe that sounds like semantics, but like Dark Samus is like an adversary, so I would rank this at least number 2. If you wanted to rank it at number 1, I could listen to that argument for sure.
I could go either way on that because man, I love the Spider Guardian. I also love this fight too.
I think I like the Spider Guardian fight more, but something's telling me we should just put this at number 1.
I know that's what I'm having a hard time. You like. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm just gonna say put it at number 1.
I think we should.
Yeah, like, I think we have to, because honestly, if I'm being, I think this is not just the best Dark Samus fight in this. I think it's the best fight in the whole series. I think this Dark Samus 2 and Echoes is probably my all-time favorite Dark Samus fight.
Oh, easily. Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
Of the what do you do? 4 of them. This is the best for sure. It's better than the Prime 3 one. The Prime 3 one actually might be number 4 on my list of Dark Samus.
Yeah, fights. Maybe. Yeah.
This one is number 1. This fight is so awesome, man. God, this is a cool fight. Like I said, I think I probably like the Spider Guardian more, but there's something that just feels right about having this fight at number 1. I feel like there's probably some Metroid fans out there if we had Spider Guardian at number 1, be like, what the hell are these guys doing? So yeah, number 1, Dark Samus Returns. Next up. I feel like you've been waiting to talk about this. Quadraxis.
We're missing, or are we not talking about the mini bosses in this game?
Who have we skipped in terms of mini bosses?
Oh, everyone's favorite mini boss, the Caretaker class drone. I've actually been waiting to talk about this guy.
Yeah, you know, I didn't include him because he doesn't have a health bar, but let's talk about him really quickly. I think that's a fun fight. I think that's a really fun
really
fight.
like this fight. Like, obviously, not going to be my number 1 pick, but again, I'm a sucker for morph ball combat bosses, and you know, it's a very simple fight, but like for what it is, I think it's a really cool idea where you're on a circular spider ball track. The machine isn't really trying to kill you. It's just kind of doing its natural process, and you're just trying to naturally kind of avoid it, hit its weak point, just to get yourself out of there to unlock the door. Yeah, and again, we were talking about this during the Echoes retrospective. One of the best things that they did to the Spider Ball was just simply adding boost ball functionality on top of it, and that's basically what this fight is. It's teaching you how to use the boost ball in conjunction with the Spider Ball, and I think it's a quick fight. It doesn't overstay its welcome, which I think is a good thing because of how repetitive it would feel otherwise. I think it's, again, that perfect length. I really enjoy it. I would probably put it at the, I don't want to say like at the top of my list, but probably like,
I think I have a spot
at the 7.
Let me compare.
I would put it at like, I'd put it at like the 75% rank if we're going like positioning on the list, the 3/4 rank.
I think I have a spot that you'll agree with here. Yeah, you know what? It's kind of a throwback fight in a lot of ways too, because it's like, exactly what you need to do. It's just your ability to do it is kind of what determines how challenging or not challenging this fight actually is. So like, I think it's pretty fun. It could definitely feel like frantic at times as well, which I think is cool. I think if it were up to me, if I was looking at this list so far, I think that there's still like a big divide between the top 5, which is Dark Samus Returns, Spider Guardian, Chica, Dark Samus, and Amorbis, and the rest of the list, which is Bomb Guardian and down. I think that's where it should go.
I agree.
I think that's a good spot for it.
Yep.
Caretaker drone. Okay. So I jumped the line here, but I'm going to let you take the lead on this next one too, because I know that you have been like wanting to talk about this boss, and for good reason. This boss is a colossal, hulking, absolute monstrous encounter for the player and for Samus, Quadraxis.
Yeah, I mean, Quadraxis. What else is there to say? Should I even bury the lead on this one? Like, this is so obviously, like, this isn't just my favorite boss in Echo. This is my all-time favorite Metroid fight, and probably my favorite boss fight in gaming in general. And playing this game again a few weeks ago, I was wondering if I was going to feel the same way, and the answer is a resounding yes. This boss is literally ahead of its time. Before we had Shadow of the Colossus, this game had you literally dismantling this massive hulking beast of a boss. It has everything. It's got the music, it's got the design, it's got the audio cues, it's got all these very different attacks. It has the frantic sense of urgency because there's very little recharges. Everything about this boss is a 10 out of 10. I love it to death. Again, it's got the morph ball combat as well. It's got secret screw attack tech as well. And no matter what place you are in the game, whether you're speedrunning or not, you're gonna have the screw attack. And so if you know how to use it, you can make the fight go even quicker. And it's so fun to optimize. I adore this fight. It is perfect. It's my baby. It's number one.
Okay. I don't feel as strongly about this fight, but I don't dislike this. I like this fight a lot. So I love, obviously, the look of Quadraxis is awesome. I do really like that you have to use pretty much all of your toolkit in order to defeat this hulking menace. And I think the music is cool, and I think that as far as Dark Aether goes, the arena is probably about as cool as it's going to get, because you're in the Ing Hive. There are some things I don't like about it, though, which, like... So I first and foremost, I don't like that you have to scan this thing like 8 times to get the full logbook entry. I'm not even exaggerating by that much, actually. I think you have to scan it 5 actual times in order to get that. So that right there is kind of like to me. I don't love the kneecap phase. I probably could have done without that, although I do think that the phase where you got a boost ball into the little gimmicks on the bottom of its feet are pretty cool. I do really like when the head is disassembled and it's flying around and you gotta mess up the antenna. I think that part's pretty cool as well. If you were asking me, like, I think the scope of the fight is incredible. The fight is a little long in the tooth, I think, for me personally. I could have... This might have been one for me where, like, less is more a little bit in terms of the length. I would probably put it below the Spider Guardian and above Chaika. That would be mine.
You know that I cannot compromise on this one. I actually cannot take anything but number one for Quadraxis, and I think our audience, for the most part, would probably agree too.
Well, we're gonna have to compromise, because I'm not putting it above Dark Samus. I could put it above the Spider Guardian, but I can't do it above Dark Samus. I can't. This fight is great. This fight is great, but, like, I don't know. It's not. I don't feel the same way about it as you do. I'm sorry.
You know what? I'm gonna still say no. I'm gonna say no. This one's going at number one. I am gonna campaign that hard for it. I'm gonna campaign that hard for it.
No, I don't think so. I think I feel like that's the compromise.
Okay, whatever.
I feel like, you know what? What else could we try and figure out here? There's not really a lot else, to be honest with you. I mean, pretty much like I totally get what you're saying. Like I love the fight. It's never had its hooks in me like it's had its hooks in you, unfortunately. Like I feel like this fight for you is like the Ridley Super Metroid fight for me, where it's like the clear, undisputed, like, this is it.
Yes.
I do love the style, and I really like when you have to, like, latch onto Quadraxis' brain. It's very Mother Brain-esque. Yeah. It's a little bit too slow pace for me, though. That's my only knock. Well, not my only knock, but it's my biggest knock against it. I hope I'm not offending anyone out there.
Maybe it's just the way I've optimized it. I don't feel like... I can see how the kneecap phase can be a little slow. Like, especially if you're playing it your first time and you don't know, like, how to manipulate it, where it's like, oh my gosh, it keeps moving its knees out of the way. How am I supposed to get it? And it's like, well, what you got to do is you got to go up front. You got to go up front to it, so that way it does its stomping attack, so that way it's not moving. You got to manipulate it to do that, and then you can start targeting the kneecap. So I get that. I don't know. I get it to a degree, but I certainly don't agree. If we want to put Dark Samus above,
is Dark Samus acceptable? Like, I know
I won't accept it in my heart, but I will accept it in reality.
I'll tell you what. Way back in the day, when Dak and I were ranking, I think we were ranking the Ridley fights, and I was like, Super Metroid is number 1, and he was like, Metroid Prime is number 1, and I was like, that's like one of the worst Ridley fights, dude. Yeah. So we ended up actually just having parallel lists. It was like a split of the timeline. Maybe that's what needs to happen here as well. There's the Doom version, there's the Andy version. I feel like coming in behind Dark Samus though is respectable, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what we need, Andy, is more multiverse stories.
Maybe we can do like an end game thing when we get to the end and have one like list again. I don't know how that works, but okay, this is the score. This is what we'll do, and you can disregard this if you want to. I think it's fair to put it at number 2 because I would have put it at number 3. I might have put it at number 4 if I'm being perfectly honest. I just knew you loved it, so I didn't want to rank it any lower than that.
I don't know. Let's let the comments decide. What do you think? Is Quadraxis a number 1 or a number 2 boy, or dare I say even lower, which would break my heart? But be honest with me, comments.
Yeah.
Where do you think our boy goes?
Let us know. I'm putting him at number 2 for now, though, and if anybody is upset about that, you can blame me. It's I was the heel commissioner here. I stepped in and used all my authority and power to make this happen. So, there we go. We got 2 bosses left here, Doom. We got 2 bosses left. This has been a marathon, but we're almost there. Emperor Ing. I feel bad like for what just transpired, so you go ahead.
I feel like this is... I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, I feel like this is another boss where we might have differing opinions on, but maybe I'll be surprised. Definitely not as high as Quadraxis, but this is a fight I really enjoy. Again, it's another fight where you're just utilizing a lot of different equipment. It definitely, if you don't know what you're doing and if you don't know the correct weapons to use, it can overstay its welcome. Yeah. But once you realize, like, oh, 1 light beam shot is all it takes to do a tentacle. You don't need a whole super missile, like the official strategy guide says, by the way. I don't know why they say that, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you use 1 light beam shot to take out the tentacles, that's all you need. If you know how to like time your projectile velocity during the eye phase, it's doing that. Again, big sucker for Morph Ball and Spider Ball combat, so I love that second phase of the fight where you're just going around bombing the tentacles. And again, inglets are there to provide some much needed health and ammo. And then the final phase is kind of like a hybrid between your traditional Warrior Ing fight and the Metroid Prime fight to a degree, but instead of like the long narrow highway, you're in a hallway, you're in a more traditional arena. And as much as I like the final phase, I think that actually might be the weakest of the 2 phases. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I still like it. This is one where I think I want to put this in my top 5, maybe my top 4. That's where I'm feeling that. I can't remember what yours is, but I have a feeling it's going to be a bit lower than mine.
I'm not that much. If you would have asked me, so when I replayed this game last year to do the guide, I kind of went in with that fight, and I was like, this isn't my absolute favorite fight in the game, and it's not my favorite fight in the game. But I would say that it grew on me a little bit for some of the reasons that you mentioned. Like I think the design is cool. I like the morph ball part. I like that, and I learned to optimize it a little bit more as well, which kind of made it a little bit better for me. I think I'd probably say the first phase with the tentacles is the weakest phase to me. Just because they're kind of a pain to hit, even with the light beam, using that instead of missiles. But even that, like it's not that bad. I think it can be slow paced in the second, the second phase where you gotta bomb the little egg, the little nest. If you do it quickly, it can work, and I think it's a cool like phase. But it sometimes you do just need to like stop and destroy inglets and recharge your health and everything like that. So it's not perfect by any means. I think the last phase might be my favorite for basically what you said. It's like a combination of like Warrior Ing and Metroid Prime. And the last time I played, I was like, you know what? I'm going to use my Light Burst and my whatever the dark one is too. And that actually made a significant difference in taking care of Emperor Ing. So, and it was pretty cool just to see like the black hole and the light beam and stuff like that. So, it went up in terms of a ranking for me. I would probably, if it were me, I would be somewhere in that Amorbis, Dark Samus neighborhood. Maybe above Amorbis, maybe below Dark Samus. I feel like I owe you though, so you tell me where this is going.
So I would be willing. I would personally probably put this above Dark Samus 1, but I wouldn't be offended to put it below it.
Let's go above Dark Samus 1 since I since I owe you.
It definitely doesn't make up for that, FYI. But oh, sure.
I'm doing what I can here. I'm doing what I can. You know what? Actually, is one thing that we didn't talk about with this fight, and now that I'm thinking about it, I don't remember it. Is the music? I don't remember the music here at all.
So the first Emperor Ing track here, probably the piece of music I spend the most time talking about in my music retrospective in Echoes. It's not my favorite piece in the game. That's the credits, which, believe it or not, I actually don't talk about the credits at all. I play it at the end, but I don't actually dissect it, believe it or not. But yeah, the first phase of the fight, there is so much cool musical ideas going on, including, and I don't want to spoil it for the video. There's one really cool leitmotif hidden in there that I discovered like a couple of years ago, and like I had to play it on my keyboard to like verify it for myself, and it's like, no, it's actually there. And like when I realized just how hidden and like how it's parallels to the other version of that leitmotif, and how it's utilized, I thought that was just incredible. And then the second phase of the fight, I just think it's an awesome theme. Definitely you can hear some similar things happening in the Rundus theme with like a lot of the meter that's happening there, which I really like. Just two really cool killer themes, but that first one in particular just is really special to me just because of how much is going on there. I really love that first theme.
Cool. Okay. Well, so there we go. Emperor Ing is coming in the number 5 spot. So it is ahead of Dark Samus the first fight and Amorbis the second. Let's bring it home. Dark Samus Reborn, the final battle of this game. We gotta talk about how freaking awesome Dark Samus looks here. God, Dark Samus looks cool. The skull, the translucent, luminescent suit. Man, that's just cool design. Which is important because I feel like this is kind of a style over substance fight. And one thing, a positive about this fight is I think that the timer, like the countdown, adds a lot of urgency to the fight and a lot of tension to what you're doing, which is probably good because the fight is pretty easy. It's definitely in terms of like an actual fight, I think it's probably fair. It's the weakest of the 3. I do kind of like the gimmick of like catching the phazon particles with your charge beam and firing it back. I think that's cool. But I think it's the weakest of the 3.
I agree with that. There also is a little bit of jank because you mentioned the phazon particles, and there is a little bit of that Echoes jank there where it's like sometimes you'll catch the particles and sometimes they'll just damage you. How that happens, I don't know. Maybe it's like a pixel off or so, like the grapple guardian and whatnot, but it does have a little bit of that Echoes jank, substantially less annoying than any of the other Echoes jank that we've talked about before. But it is there, and I felt like I gotta point that out at least. That being said, still a cool killer fight. I mean, there's a reason that like I think we both ranked this as number 1 during our escape sequence ranking. For
It's
good
cool.
reason. It's such an awesome moment in the game. Again, the prelude cutscene with Samus and Dark Samus pointing their guns at each other, gunslinger style. Perfect. Just inject that into my veins. I'm here all day for it. You mentioned Dark Samus's new look, very reminiscent of like the original Metroid Prime form. So cool. Easily my favorite of the Dark Samus designs. I just absolutely I love like the translucent, how you can see like all the veins and like organic structures inside. Like it's such a cool design.
Yeah.
The third eye, I'm all here for it. And yeah, the fight itself, while it definitely is style over substance, it's still a pretty fun fight at the end of the day.
And it's
you
still
know,
pretty
for what it
stylish,
is.
to be fair, too.
Yeah.
Like, style's not for nothing. You got to have a little
Oh, yeah.
sizzle with your steak. I might suggest to you here, Doom, that I think I might put it between Amorbis and the Caretaker class drone. Is that too low?
I think fair. I think that's fair.
Okay. Then I think that's it. We have got, my God, we've got a lot of bosses here. We've got 16 bosses that we have ranked painstakingly through betrayal and heartbreak and heated segments. We have got these ranked from 16 to number 1. So without further ado, let's go. Let's start from the bottom up. At 16 and last spot, I knew this was coming in last before we even did this today. That's the Alpha Blog. Number 15, the Jump Guardian. 14, Dark Alpha Splinter. 13, the Grapple Guardian. Number 12, the Powerbomb Guardian. Number 11, the Boost Guardian. Controversial Guardian there. Number 10 is the Bomb Guardian. Number 9, the Caretaker class drone. Number 8, Dark Samus Reborn, aka the final battle of the game, the third Dark Samus fight. Number 7 is going out to Amorbis. Number 6, the first encounter with Dark Samus. Number 5, Emperor Ing. Number 4, Jaika. Number 3, the Spider Guardian. And if you're... The official list is going to show for the record. Number 2, Quadraxis. And number 1, Dark Samus Returns. If you're Doom, that is reverse, though. Number 1 is Quadraxis, and number 2 is Dark Samus. List be damned!
Both incredible fights, I just want to point out.
Both
like, I'm
amazing.
certainly not here. I am certainly not going to poo-poo on Dark Samus 2, which I also have zero critiques for, really.
You know what? I'm going to make the thumbnail here Quadraxis 2, just to show a little love to our guy. He's going to be what you see when you click on this episode, so shout out to you, Quadraxis.
Justice for Quadraxis.
Let us know, man. Like, am I out to lunch on this Quadraxis business? Are we?
I think the comments are going to
Guardian?
be I think the comments are going to have a few words with you. Just saying.
They usually do, to be honest. So that's okay. Oh my goodness, this was a marathon, but we did it. We ranked all these bosses in Metroid Prime 2. And if you can believe it, there's more Metroid Prime 2 echoes yet to come. Next week, I ain't going to be here. Dak ain't going to be here. Doom is taking the reins, and we are... You know, Taylor Swift has her versions of her songs. By God. Doom is going to have his version of definitive ranking, and there's going to be no shenanigans to tell him he can't rank Quadraxis or whatever he wants to do. So we've got some guests, actually, that are coming in. We are definitively ranking as a whole, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, so we'll keep some of the surprises a little bit close to the chest, but that should be a really fun time. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys are gonna come up with. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so we're literally going to record the episode probably the day before it usually goes out, and so definitely luckily I don't have work those next 2 days, so I'll have plenty of time to edit all that together, but yeah, I'm really excited for this one. It's gonna be. I'm not gonna spoil too much. You'll find out who the guests are when it's uploaded. But yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
It should be fun.
I will say one thing. I will say none of these guests have ever appeared on the Omega Metroid podcast before. So you're all in for. Yeah, none of them have appeared on the podcast before. So you're all in for a good treat, folks.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is our Metroid Prime 2 Echoes definitive boss ranking. Anything that we need to add here, Doom, before we get out of here?
No, I mean Metroid Prime 2, as we've talked about before, man, this game not all the bosses I think are winners. You know what? That is something we should talk about because we've been mentioning the Dread comparisons. Do you want to definitively do it for all? Like, which game has the better bosses, or do you want to just get the heck out of here right now?
I need more time to sit on that. I need more time to really think about, because quantity isn't everything. Like it's also quality. That's a good idea. You know what? Let's put that on our list of things to do. Maybe in, I guess 2025 now, because it's pretty much the rest of the year is mapped out. But
I don't know which I would put on top at the moment. But one thing I will say, I think Dread has the better consistency, but I think Echoes has the bigger highs. If that makes sense.
That does. I don't.
But again,
think about it. I really would.
Yeah, same here. Both incredibly strong contenders.
And not only those, like I think Metroid Fusion would have to be in that conversation. I think that, I mean, like Super Metroid, I feel like that would have to be in that conversation. Yeah, like Metroid Prime. Like, yeah, there's some ones that I think would need to be talked about as well. So, well, that's a great topic. We'll revisit that down the road here. That being said, though, let's get on out of here, Doom. Let's call it a day. Just wanted to, of course, thank everybody for checking us out here and sticking with us through this episode. This was a long one, but I thought it was a great one. So thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Give us a follow wherever you are over on social. Like we said, we're going to be kind of using BlueSky as our platform going forward here. So we're at Omega Metroid over on BlueSky. Give us a follow there. I'm at Spiteri316. Doom is at Doomittle Cross on both platforms there, so check him out. OmegaMetroid.com has got you covered if you are facing any of these bosses that we have talked about today. Strategies, all sorts of different stuff that you can find over on that website. If you're a Metroid fan, check it out because there's tons of good stuff there for you. We do have a Patreon as well if you're interested in supporting the site. It's patreon.com/SPNet. The great Metroid area ranking rolls on, and yeah, we've got some good stuff planned for this month as well. So if you want to take your Omega Metroid love to the next level, check us out there. And check us out wherever you get your podcast. Like, subscribe, recommend, review, all that kind of good stuff. If you got a Metroid fan in your life, tell them where they can get their weekly Metroid fix. That, my friends, is going to do it for us. So until next week, everybody, take care. Bye.